Good evening, Yorktown, and welcome to the Town Board Work Session meeting. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
2022. If everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And everyone could just please join us in a moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers all of our first responders, our police, fire, our EMS and EMTs, of course, all of our doctors and nurses that continue to treat all of our residents and patients who come to their hospitals. And tonight we say a special prayer for our soldiers serving overseas and all those on the Ukraine-Russia border as we continue to monitor that crisis. Thank you.
Amen.
You always do that.
He always says it wrong.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just, we're going to do introductions quickly. To my right.
Town Clerk Diana Quast.
Tom Diana, Councilman, Deputy Supervisor.
Matt Slater, Town Supervisor.
Ed Lachterman.
Sergio Esposito, Councilman.
Luciana Howitt, Councilwoman. Good evening.
And we have with us, Maura Weisletter, Deputy Town Clerk. And on Zoom, we have, filling in for our Town Attorney, we have with us tonight, Jim. Jim, can you hear us?
Say hi.
Jim Glathar is filling in for our Town Attorney tonight. So we welcome everybody. Just one brief announcement, before we begin. This Friday is still scheduled for E-Waste Day over at the Yorktown, in front of the Yorktown Police Department. So you can bring any of your electronics, textiles, or tires to drop that off. And that will be again this Friday. All the information is found on the town's website. We're going to begin tonight with a proclamation. Before I do that, is there any other announcements from the town board?
Nope. You want to announce the...
Go for it.
Yes, so we'll be having our inauguration. It's at the Albert A. Cappellini Community and Cultural Center, 12 o'clock, in the gym, in the auditorium there, on
The 27th.
on the 27th.
Sunday.
On Sunday the 27th. Thank you.
And
And you're all invited, please.
That includes...
27th of February, because March 27th is a Sunday also.
Yeah,
It is?
so it's February 27th at 12 o'clock in the gym at our ACCCCCCC. I can never say it.
The old
Albert
sixth grade
Cappellini.
school.
Yep, the old school 6th grade. And we hope you guys can just come and, support all the candidates from this election. And we're sorry that it took so long, but we would love to see you all.
Excellent.
I'll tell you, it's the first one I'm going to have to miss. I had a family engagement, and I forgot about it, and it wasn't a good thing. So, and I had already committed, so I got in trouble. But anyway, I will not be there for that one, unfortunately.
And it will include...
You will in spirit.
It will include Dave Paganelli, our highway superintendent, and
Via
Cohen Pearson, our newly elected town judge.
And I want to know why Ed knows that March 27th is a Sunday. I mean, how do you know that?
28 days in February. So it recycles.
As long as you know that March 21st is my birthday, we're good.
How did I get stuck sitting
You
next
would
to
be
him?
a March birthday.
I am. I'm on the cusp.
There, I know.
That Aries.
That was my grandmother's birthday.
All right, we're gonna
All
move.
right, let's get this.
We're going to move
Okay, let's
forward.
go.
Thank you. So we're going to move forward. We have a proclamation condemning the use of racist remarks in public discourse. I'll read the proclamation. It states, whereas over the course of the last 2 years, the Yorktown Town Board has consistently spoken out and stood against all forms of hate, racism, and bigotry within our community and beyond. And whereas over the course of the last 2 years, the Yorktown Town Board and the Yorktown community have taken concrete steps toward combating hatred, racism, and bigotry in all of its forms. And whereas the Yorktown Town Board recognizes the societal infections of hate and racism have and continue to exist in all communities across our nation, now therefore be it resolved that the Yorktown Town Board condemns the use of any racist remarks in public discourse. Be it further resolved that the Yorktown Town Board once again wholeheartedly rejects violence and the destruction of property and is committed to the protection and safety of all of its residents. And be it further resolved, the Yorktown Town Board wholeheartedly rejects all forms of hatred, racism, oppression, religious or ethnic bias, discrimination, incitement of violence, and vandalism. We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any comments from the board? No?
We stand firm at what we said in the past over the, 3 or 4 of these that we've done. We haven't changed our stripes. We're not going to. This is how we feel. and we're just reinforcing it.
Thank you.
You know, I just wish that everyone can take the lesson that I learned that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, because it's twice as hard to listen as it is to speak. And we need to listen. We need to be able to have a conversation, and we need to turn away from, you know, if I don't like your opinion, I am going to throw a label on you, because this is getting us absolutely nowhere on either side of the aisle and on either side of society. So, you know, I just implore people to listen, have a conversation, and at the end of the day, if you agree to disagree, shake hands, walk away, and disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, and honestly, you know, I really do believe that most of us want the same thing. There are some that don't or may not, but most of us do. And if we could just come together in any way, shape, or form, I think that's where you'll see progress.
From my standpoint, I just want to remind everyone that we see you, and we understand that in the fight for inclusivity, sometimes we create exclusions. And what that's doing, that's creating a lot more pain than this town can handle. So it's really important that we recognize, we take a pause, and we recognize how hurtful we're becoming to one another, and also listen and understand what traumas have come from our past and how they're affecting us and our children in our future. And by doing that, it's by opening up the platform, not by throwing shame and racist remarks. You don't get anything for being loud, says the girl who's very loud. You get things from listening. You get things from holding compassion, standing for integrity, being true to other people, seeing the human that stands next to you, knowing that inside that adult is an inner child that experienced something that you may never even be able to comprehend. And until we can get there, we can't win this fight. So for all of those who are out there battling, I'm asking why we're bringing that war. Because the war really should be a conversation at a table, or maybe just a moment of silence to understand the energies, the sadness, the pain, the insecurities, and the abandonment that we might have inside, and then offer compassion so that we can grow together as a community. Yorktown must stand together. This is not just a Yorktown thing. This is a worldwide thing. Mm-hmm. But I promise, and I say it again, my office is always open, but more so is my heart. And if there's anyone who needs anything, this town board, come look. Don't think, don't assume. Come look and ask. We have some good questions to ask, but we also are willing to hear your perspectives. It's our future, both our healing and the healing for those that come after us. So thank you. And again, we will not stand for this.
I'm glad you brought up that it is not just a Yorktown problem. This is a problem that's pervasive around the world right now, as we're seeing daily watching the news.
Yeah.
And I will also say that, you know, you brought something up where there are assumptions. We should not be labeling people.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know half of anyone's story. They know that. They know their internal walk that they've had through life, and just, you know, it's very sad when we see that.
Yeah, and I just want to, and I'm sorry for being so emotional about this. It's just a really important thing for me to have this sort of level of awareness. But what we're not realizing is, as we're screaming and yelling for these rights that we're declaring, there are children that are taking their lives. There are adults that have zero coping mechanisms. We're not offering the level of support that this intelligent group of humans that we are can give. I mean, we are all naturally resourceful, creative, and whole. And we need to learn to lean together so that we can trust the process. People are in need. There's a need, and we're avoiding that need by just standing there to want to be right. Well, damn it, we're all wrong. Everyone is wrong right now. No one is actually right. So I think I'm good. I don't want to cry. It's only my second town board meeting.
All right. Thank you very much for everyone's comments. We're going to move on to some resolutions for personnel. We'll take them together. We're going to appoint Yvonne Check permanent to the Civil Service Title Library Director 3. We're going to appoint Vincent Kalikia temporary to the Civil Service Title Sewer Maintenance Worker in the Sewer Department. We're going to appoint Frank Rendina temporary to the Civil Service Title Sewer Maintenance Worker Mechanical in the Sewer Department. We're going to appoint Thomas Lagatella promotional to Heavy Equipment Operator in the Water Department. And we will appoint Julio Alessio contingent permanent to the Civil Service Title Water Maintenance Worker Grade 2 in the Water Department.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Best wishes to everyone.
Any opposed? Okay. Madam Clerk, we're okay to move forward with the next item? Okay, we have the notice for the public hearing. This is a public hearing regarding Chapter 300, entitled Solar Power Generation Systems and Facilities. I'm going to have our Director of Planning, John Tegeter, come to the podium to provide a brief overview of the proposed amendments to the solar law. John, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. So I'm going to be pretty brief here. I'm just going to explain what these amendments are. This is an amendment to the solar law, which was enacted in 2020. And there are basically 8 items that we are adding or modifying. The first one is on small-scale solar arrays, which is typically what you will see on single-family residential properties as an accessory use. In other words, a family wants to do some solar to supplement or reduce their bill. The minimum lot size will go from 1 acre to 2 acres. The second one is on large-scale solar arrays, which are ones that are larger than 25 kW, but typically we see them in the range of 1 megawatt or above. The setback, which is now required at 50 feet, will go to 100 feet. And the height at the highest point of each part of the array will go from 15 feet down to 10 feet in residential zones only. In commercial zones, large-scale solar will remain as a height restriction of 20 feet. On large-scale solar systems, the minimum lot size will go from 2 acres to 5 acres, so that'll be a minimum of 5 acres. Number 4 is an addition which will require annual inspections of your landscaping, and this is aimed mostly at landscaping that affects screening, which is required under the law, and that will be required to be done by the owner or operator annually. They will have to provide a report to the town engineer. If it is found that there are deficiencies in the screening, they will need to replace in kind that screening so it remains effective. The 5th is an addition. It requires now a bond for decommissioning. A decommissioning plan was required before, and the requirement for bonding was left up to the planning board. It will now be a hard requirement to have both a decommissioning plan and a bond to guarantee the proper removal at the end of the life of the system. The 6th one is to require a pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. That was non-existent in the law prior. That is an addition. The 7th is to require a lockbox, which is essentially at any gate you will have a box that essentially affords any emergency service personnel to get into the site so they don't have to wait for anybody to come down and let them in. And number 8 is also an addition, which is basically more of a housekeeping thing, which is that it has any development under this law has to comply with all other regulations out there, state, local, county, which is fairly typical but was not in the law before. So,
Good.
those are the ones.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
We did receive some comments on the proposal. DEP, it's not in their jurisdictional permit, so they had no comment. The Conservation Board supported the amendment to Chapter 300 of the local law. ABACA reviewed the above referenced subject and had no objections to the proposed amendments. The Planning Board on February 14th also reviewed and deliberated on this. They had no objections to the proposed amendments to the special permit legislation. They did, however, recommend that the law contain a grandfathering clause that exempts projects that have an active application for a special permit for a solar project before the town, or if they've already obtained the approval from the town from compliance with the proposed modifications. We also had comments from members of the Climate Smart Communities Task Force. Let's see. They questioned some of the amendments that they outweighed the value given to solar panels. And they were concerned that some of the modifications would deter the installation of of panels. And they provided some specific issues regarding landscape, so on and so forth. So we do have that as well. And then we also have Ecology, which is a solar company that has done and has continued to work on several projects in town. They raised a few items regarding the setback requirements, height requirements, as it relates to the annual inspections, as well as the pilot provisions. And so they did provide commentary on those and provided some alternative language and suggestions for the board's consideration. And I believe that's all from written comment, correct? Mm-hmm. Excellent. And with that, right on the nose, 7:30. Mm-hmm. We can open it up unless there's other comments or questions from the town board. None?
Not right now.
Okay, then we'll open it up for public comment. Everyone, please, just as a reminder, state your name for the record.
Jay Kopstein, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Kopstein.
I'm going to be going a little bit afield. Please bear with me. First, the face and scope of electric generation in general is changing. We need to evaluate the entire group of industrial-sized solar projects in town. We should differentiate between large and mega projects. Until we do so, there should be a blanket moratorium. Who are these solar farms contracting with? Are they contracting with Con Ed in a direct contract? Or NYSEG? Or the general New York ISO contracted generator? The cost differentiation is significant. Again, these are industrial-sized projects we're talking about, not the homeowner who wants a dozen panels on their roof. What electric users are going to benefit? It's something like Sustainable Westchester that anybody in town can sign up to? Or is it going to be a project that nobody in town can sign up to because they contracted with the ISO and the ISO is sending 100% of the electricity into New York City? How are these solar farms going to be assessed? As a community-based benefit? Or as an industrial company that's generating significant profits in our town? And I'm going to use Con Ed as an example, if I may. Con Ed has 3 different ISO billing models, if you will. The northern part of Westchester County is on the Millwood site. Not a physical site, it's a geographic area. The southern part of Westchester County, and perhaps a piece of the Bronx, is on the Dunwoody evaluation, which is more expensive than Millwood. And of course, the third one is the New York City site, which is the most expensive of all. So if somebody's building a site here in Yorktown, who's getting the benefit of that energy? Is the Yorktown or the Millwood rate going to go down? Or the New York City and Dunwoody rate going to go down? And Yorktown's rate or the Millwood rate remains in the higher level? These are the questions we need answers to before we saddle our predominantly residential communities with industrial-sized solar farms. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you, Jay.
Copson.
Thank you, Jay.
Next.
Hello, Paul Moskowitz,
Hello,
Yorktown
Mr.
resident.
Moskowitz.
I believe it was Councilman Deanna who brought up the issue of the solar law as it is and expressed some concerns. I thank him for doing that, but I think we have overlooked one question, which is at the heart of the matter, and that is creation of large-scale solar farms in residential areas is now an as-of-right development. If somebody meets the zoning requirements and the requirements of the law, they cannot be stopped, no matter how much you, the town board, or the planning board wants to, because the permit is now as of right. And I think this is a wrong way to go. I think that the town board has abrogated, is that a good word? Abrogated their responsibility by tossing this over the fence to the planning board. And the planning board has limited authority. They cannot say what you're planning is abhorrent, we can't stand this, don't do it. The planning board has to say yes also, as long as the minimum requirements are met. One representative of Con Ed, Mr. Shanahan, who represented the Lockwood development in the northwest part of Yorktown, where they're going to cut down something like over a dozen acres of healthy trees, something like 1,500 trees. Mr. Shanahan, when asked whether he had read the law, he's asked by me, in fact, whether he had read the law which says that the preference that the town wants is for land that has already been cleared, unused agricultural or recreational land, for example. And what did Mr. Shanahan say? He said, I don't care. I've met the zoning requirements. You have to give me my permit. And the deep part of that is he was not really looking for land to use to make into solar farms for Con Ed. What he was doing was dealing with one landowner who saw a path to enrichment. And in fact, what we have done by the solar law has been to make it possible for,
You're saying for everyone?
excuse me?
No, I didn't hear you. You said it, making it possible?
Oh, I stopped.
Okay, I was like,
Sorry. Making it possible for anyone who wishes to develop a large-scale solar farm and has enough land to just go ahead and do it. I don't think we should allow this. I think each and every project should stand on its own merits. What we've done is we've made our residential property subject to a commercial or, in fact, an industrial development. And the consequences are not clear at this point. You're going to have acres and acres covered with solar collectors. We don't know how this will go when you have many of these solar farms in Yorktown. There's an immediate concern if you're cutting down acres of trees. Trees have more value than collecting carbon, although they've been doing that. If you have a farm where the trees have been there for 50 years, you have 50 years of carbon stored up, and you're going to release all that carbon not only from cutting down the trees, but from that which has been stored in the roots. So I heard our town planner say at one discussion, when asked what's going to happen after the 20 or 25 years of use of a solar farm runs out. and whether this would be restored to its original condition. And what he said, if I heard correctly, he said it was not likely. I want to make it clear that I'm in favor of solar development. I subscribe to a community solar farm. In fact, this is the Arcadia farm, and I'm very happy to have that I have supported solar energy. So I just don't know what the results of this are. I would note that in the town of Newcastle, they prohibit large-scale solar farms on residential property. I don't know what the reasoning is there, but this is an interesting experiment, and we'll see what the results are. I had one particular question about the law, and that is going from 1 acre to 2 acres. Does that mean you have to have 2 acres of land to put a solar farm, or you have to be zoned for 2 acres?
No, it's
You have to have 2
you have
acres
to
of
possess
land.
2 acres of land in order to put an application forward.
And that's for a small scale, a rooftop.
No, it's for large scale.
Okay,
So it limits the amount of residential property that they can actually be proposed on.
okay, that's good. So I think I've concluded what I had to say. I just think that we're entering into an experiment, and we won't know what the result is for a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Moskowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Moskowitz.
Next.
Hi, Susan.
Good evening, Susan Siegel. All right. Let me just preface my comments by saying I support solar energy. Okay. All right. And it's interesting. I'd like to pick up on things that both Paul and Jay. Sorry about that. Moment. Okay. And even going back to Councilman Diana, when you brought this up last year, okay, and I was delighted that you once saw that the law needed tweaking, which is not unusual when we had a solar law, which is a brand new concept. You don't know what to expect, so any brand new law needs tweaking. So that was good, but also I think Councilman Diana talked about a moratorium, and I think I wrote to the previous board and maybe this board saying, yeah, let's do a moratorium because there are many issues that need to be discussed. Councilman Diana identified some, but as somebody who has sat through too many hours of planning board meetings that have discussed these, I was aware of other issues. All right. In fact, I did set, so while I support the amendments that are proposed tonight, which they're okay. I mean, they're no big deal. There's nothing earth-shattering about them. They don't go far enough. And I let the previous board know, and I think I sent it to the new board because there were 2 new members, and I gave them some ideas that basically I culled from my planning board experience. Let me rephrase that. As an observer at planning board, okay? I didn't mean to infer that I was on planning board. And also by going through laws. There's this fascinating site on the web that you can do a database of state laws, of all local laws throughout the state. So if you want to know, gee, how did they react to a certain issue, you just look it up and you can get hundreds and hundreds and read through them and see how different communities dealt with the same concepts. Let me just repeat, and I was a little disappointed, frankly, that the town board never considered any of the suggestions that I made. I'm not saying that you have to accept my suggestions, believe me, I know that, all right? But at least discuss some other ideas besides your own. 1, add language to the purpose and intent section of the solar law that recognizes the environmental importance of the multiple functions that trees and woodlands play in addition to the importance of solar energy. We have a conundrum. You have a conundrum. You have 2 very important goals, promoting solar energy and saving when I say trees, I really mean woodlands. I'm not talking about individual trees. They're both equally important, and I know that you recognize the importance, but frankly, they're in conflict because to have a large solar farm, you've got to cut down the trees. And so I think the solar law has to recognize that there are multiple functions besides solar in the purpose and intent of the law. 2, add language that requires mitigation plans for tree loss to take into account all the functions lost by tree removal. The current law only considers carbon sequestration function of trees. Anyone who heard last week's planning board meeting heard the discussion about function, and the Conservation Board was very concerned. They were talking about a specific site plan, but the concern about the loss of functions, in that case cutting down roughly 1,500 trees. And there was no discussion about any of the multiple functions, and I'm not going to go through them now. I think I've written enough articles in the paper so you know what the functions are, all right? And there is a science to knowing how the functions are evaluated. It is not a mystery. We have 2 qualified environmental consultants on board, and if they don't know how to deal with this, well, I think you need to get another environmental consultant, because I have read the environmental consultant's report on 2 of these, and they did not do a very comprehensive job. They did not talk about any of the functions of trees. Third, add the language making it clear that landscaping required for buffering cannot be counted as a mitigation plan. Again, this came up in the Foothill Plan. Okay, and thank you, Jim, you're listening, I think. Jim made it clear to the applicant that the trees you plant for landscaping is not part of the mitigation plan. But this comes up repeatedly, and it actually comes up in other site plans not dealing with solar, all right? And this should be in the law. It's a very simple thing to state that. Third, add language that requires the seeker review to assess the project's potential adverse impact on the loss of specific tree functions. Again, these are they're not diminishing the importance of solar, but it's a question of balance, and that's all I'm asking. And the law, as currently written, does not have balance. I would just like to ask a question about the provision that you are discussing, talks about a pilot. I think NYSERDA has guidelines, on doing that. Is it a cut and dry thing that you follow the NYSERDA guidelines, or is this going to be subject to the town board's discretion? And if so, will there be a public discussion about what that pilot will be, or will that be predetermined and then just automatically slipped in to any planning board approval? But I think, because I think it was Mr. Kopstein who brought up the assessment issue, this is not going to be taxed based on assessment. It's going to be this pilot. But I think the public should have an idea and should be able to comment on it. That's all. And then I urge you, if you're going to pass the legislation that you have tonight, please don't consider closing the door. There are many other points. I agree with probably everything that Paul said. This whole question about as of right and special permit, you're tying the hands of the planning board, and there are better ways to look at this. And you can support solar, and I do support solar. I have to emphasize that enough, all right? But you also have to look at other issues. Neighborhood preservation is one thing, but also the trees. So please finish your work tonight and then get back to work next week and start looking at other ways to fix this law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel. Thank you. Anyone else?
The usual suspects, I guess, huh?
Our faves.
I don't think I've ever seen you before.
I couldn't understand the movie, but it's a great movie, with a great line for a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great line forever, a lot of things. Dan Strauss, 55-year resident. I know. You don't know me that well.
No.
No, you don't at all. So I'm not going to really address my remarks initially to Ms. Howitt or Mr. Esposito, because you weren't on the board when they did the tree law.
I think you like saying your name.
Huh?
You've got the names down.
Oh, I got them down. Esposito's easy.
You're new to the town, right?
Huh? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it a lot simpler than my predecessor speakers. We're talking about thousands of trees being cut down. I've said it before. I said it in emails. I've said it at the planning board at one board meeting. Talking about thousands of trees. Since 2020, you've had an opportunity, I believe, to make changes in the law before now. There are 2 and maybe 3 specific projects going on right now that are the bane of the whole discussion. Plus, as my predecessors have said, as of right now, there is nothing in your changes to the law that is preventing anyone coming in as of right, and I say an overlay district right over the whole town as far as solar energy. And I said it in an email to you. That's what you've done. You've put an overlay district on the entire town of Yorktown. Okay, so we now go to residential. I didn't know that. Town of Newcastle has banned it. Mount Kisco has 35% in residential. I did some research, and I came into this much too late because of COVID. And I honestly thought, because in the early discussion about this whole solar business, there was a project that was proposed on Underhill Road, up on a hill, I believe. Mm-hmm. And you know, so you're nodding, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And when I went to the planning board, Mr. Bach, everyone else, they didn't remember it. But he said, oh yeah, I remember that. And as far as I know, the gentleman who was proposing it, and I think it was Mr. Shanahan, and now that I could be wrong on that, he left it because there was seemingly an outcry about destroying a ton of trees. So then he goes back, or somebody goes back to the other developments, the other proposed developments, Foothill, Hill Farm, and the new one on Strawberry Road. There's a total, they seem to be, the acreage seems to always see, it keeps changing at every meeting I hear. It's always changing. It's like a changing landscape. And the amount of trees seems to change, but it's still close to 3,000. And as of right, if someone wants to come in here with 20 acres, 30 acres, residential, or wherever it is, and they want to take down another 5,000 trees, they can do it just like that. And there's supposedly nothing that can be done about it. And this is wrong. I have said it before, we are a tree city. When I used to start coming to these meetings, they had kids putting up their pictures on the wall in this room about trees, trees, trees. They had things going up. And Mr. Grace would look at me, and he'd roll his eyes because I kept saying, you remember, just as I'm standing here, I used to talk about the trees in Yorktown and the fabric of this town. And what you're doing is destroying it. You're destroying it with this solar law, the way it is. And unless you make a change in what you're doing, and you have the option to do it, and prevent what is going on, a lot of people down the road are going to suffer. Because climate change, you talk about solar, and that's the new way to go. Oh, yeah. And I'm not saying I believe in it, because my predecessors, they always say, I believe in it. That's not the point, whether I believe in it or not. That is not the point. The point is that you're destroying Yorktown. And with climate change, when you get torrential rains come in the next 5-10 years, and they come splatting down right on those solar panels, and there's nothing to stop it, no trees to stop it, and the ground washes away, and it goes downhill and takes out 5 or 10 homes, or goes into Putnam Valley, who have had concerns about the Foothill project, then you'll know what's going to happen. That's when you'll find out. And to Miss Siegel's comment about function of trees, I've read up on that. And I read up on the wetlands. People are more concerned with wetlands. If you said wetlands tonight, you probably have 100 people come, just like when you were going to change the wetland law about 4 years ago. You remember that meeting, 100 people showed up. And I'm looking at you because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't even be talking about this. We would not be talking about this tonight. So, and again, Mr. Lachterman, you remember 100 people came because they didn't want the wetlands disturbed. Well, I'm saying don't disturb the trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Good evening, Sarah Wilson, 31-year resident of Yorktown. Everyone knows I'm an environmentalist, and
we love everything about that.
I also support the proposed amendments that Mr. Tegeter outlined tonight. I'm just here to speak about two topics, and I didn't coordinate with anyone else who's already spoken, but I'm going to touch on some of the same topics, just coincidentally. The statement of purpose and intent, Section B5, states that the town values its open space, naturalized areas, and rural character. Maintaining high environmental quality and values are a mainstay of the town's efforts in its guidance and regulation of development in the town. As such, the town, in guiding the development of solar installations, will prioritize their placement first on agricultural or greenfield properties in areas that are presently cleared, second on commercial properties over roofs and parking areas, and then third on vacant parcels that are currently in a naturalized state. But we didn't actually provide anything in the solar law to put any teeth behind that intent. You know, those are all good that we've stated that, but we don't have a model to enforce it. So I would recommend that a simple assessment step be enacted that would measure or rate or classify the proposed solar-powered generation developments according to that criteria. The intent would be to set a higher bar for the proposed projects that are on vacant parcels that are in that naturalized state versus the more desirable proposals on that already cleared property or on those commercial roofs or parking lots. Section F2 governs the special use permit requirements for large-scale systems. Item E of that section requires the applicant to provide a statement detailing the loss of trees to be removed and the quantity of carbon sequestered. So we've talked about that, and it's compared to how much solar power is going to be generated and how beneficial that is against non-renewable power. So that's a good comparison, but we don't actually, have a rating. Is it good? Is it not so good? We just are requiring the comparison. But the flaw in this approach is that while each individual tree has a carbon sequestering value, it doesn't take into account the function of the forest, as previous speakers have mentioned, when we're evaluating a woodland site. These include all the benefits of woodlands that are outlined in the Findings of Facts, Section 270-3 of the Tree Law. According to the tree law, the goal of a mitigation plan states that such plan is to replace the functions carried out by the protected trees and woodlands affected by the proposed activity. And those functions, of course, go far beyond sequestering carbon. So while the solar law provides for mitigation for the carbon sequestering ability of the removed trees, I recommend that the solar law more clearly reflect and mirror the tree law by also addressing the impact of tree removal on the function of those woodland sites. These two changes, first, rating the proposed project according to what type of site is involved, and then second, requiring the applicant to conduct that more comprehensive comparison of not only the renewable energy benefits of the project versus the total environmental impact on the entire woodland, not just the sequestering of carbon, would both be positive enhancements to the solar law that would provide a roadmap to address the town's priorities as they were expressed in that opening statement of purpose and intent, Section B5. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Other comments?
One more thing.
It's at the podium, sir, yes? Just reintroduce yourself one more time for us, just in case you might have forgotten.
Ann Strauss, 50-year resident.
55-year resident.
I love that.
Anything that you do right now should be grandfathered. Anything that you're putting into this new law, it should go back to the proposals that are in place right now.
So it should be retroactive.
Retroactive. So that would stall anything that's going on until, and I'm going to use Mr. Fahn, because I use different people what they do. He says, I want to get it right. I want to get it right. Well, that's my opinion on that one. And I also want to mention mitigation. And I'll probably ruffle feathers on this one again. Putting money in the tree fund is not mitigation for me. And it seems that one of the planning board members made it very clear that that's what he feels, that's fine with him. That is not mitigation. Putting up evergreen trees around it, that's not mitigation. That's screening. The only mitigation you can do is not cut the trees down. Number two, as far as mitigation goes, and you know how I feel about this, there is no ongoing code enforcement in this town. And I'm not the only one who has said it. A lady wrote into the newspaper about 2 months ago. I read the papers. I try not to say anything that is wrong up here. I've learned from you, Mr. Slater. I know that you make sure that what I say, it's got to be right. She wrote a scathing article about code enforcement. So, mitigation. There's a gas station, and I brought it up before. I brought it up at a planning board meeting. A gas station, and this is the one that I will focus on because it covers the whole deal as far as this goes. At Strawberry and Route 6.
There we go.
About 6 years ago, the gentleman who owned the gas station cut down trees illegally. And there was a big fence in front of the property that looked awful. So I guess he felt, I'll cut the trees down and I'll also take the fence down. And someone made a remark that, boy, it looks a lot better without the fence. But did it look a lot better without the trees? And nothing was done about that. We were told by the supervisor at the time that it was not profitable for the town to go after him for any fines or anything like that. So as part of the mitigation of the whole thing, he had to do some changes. There was a monument sign at the gateway to Shrub Oak, and I remember, and he did a good job on his monument sign. And on one side, he put up some big pine trees. But that wasn't the side that was in contention, because the problem was that he was not to show the used cars, the cars for sale, along Route 6. That was the whole deal. So, in the mitigation, he put up a fence below ground level. It's a little white picket fence. And then he put up trees in between. It's not a continuous fence. So for me, I thought that he's supposed to put up a higher fence and then screening with the evergreens in between. Now all the evergreens are dead. No one cares. So how is this going to, into the future with solar farms? You're saying that they have to do make a report up each year and submit it? I don't know about that. Who's going to go out and check? What happens if all the trees, all the evergreens get shoo? That's my comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss. Additional comments?
Correction.
Yes, sir.
Jake Hopson, first time I've said it, 35 years in Yorktown. It was mentioned earlier about the Lockwood site being for Con Ed. It is not. It's Con Ed Solutions, which is not Con Ed as we normally see the trucks. It is an ESCO.
Yeah.
And it is not restricted to community purchases. It does not 100% benefit our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kopstein. Other comments? Anyone else with a comment regarding the solar law amendments? Please come forward. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here. I'll take this up. You won't hear me otherwise. My name's Catherine Honig. I haven't met the new board yet.
Hi, Catherine.
Nice to meet you
Hello.
all. Though I think I've seen you on
Yeah.
Zoom at planning board meetings. Nice to see you, Sergio. And I know Mr. Lackerman's been there too. My family has been in the town for 180 years. I'm sure people are tired of hearing me say that.
No, it's a great thing to say. I know. It's
And
amazing.
I'm here to comment on the solar law. And frankly, I think a lot of the things in it are really good. And I'm with my family trying to develop a solar farm. My concern is about grandfathering. My family's been working on this project for over a year and a half. It's cost a lot of money. We've tried to be really respectful of the law as it exists today, and many of the things you're putting in the solar law are part of our deal already. So, for example, my family is leasing the property to someone who's going to own and operate this. There's conditions in the lease about landscaping and maintenance. There's a condition in there about a decommissioning plan and a bond and insurance for that. These are all things that are very important, and that's part of doing our project. And I know there's a lot of concern about solar farms. I happen to have had solar on my own property for the last 7 years. It's very quiet. Nobody even knows it's there. It offsets my horrible Con Ed bill, 33%. I didn't have a choice. And so I think it's important, at least I'm going to speak for my own project. Each project should stand on its own 2 feet. And we've spent a lot of time and energy trying to get this right. And there's economics around this too, not only what we've spent, but there are certain incentives that are expiring, and were this to all apply retroactively, it would bring us all the way back to zero and potentially destroy the economics of the project. So I think it's important that the planning board have the discretion to make people go through the process which we've done, and it's an extensive process. Tree commission, conservation board, town engineer with a 300-page stormwater prevention plan. It's not a haphazard process, and we've taken it very seriously. So I asked the town not to apply this retroactively. And just because I know people have brought it up, this is a Con Ed project. People who live in Yorktown will be able to subscribe to this. And if you want to offset your Con Ed bill, you unfortunately, right now, you can't participate in a solar farm upstate that's not in your district. So this will definitely 100% benefit people in the town of Yorktown. Up to 60% can be for individual homeowners and 40% for businesses like Club Fit, which is next door. And we're working, both of our neighbor of Club Fit and Mrs. Sheehy on my other side, we're working with them to make this, to address their concerns. And I think that people who handle projects in that way should not be penalized for taking the time to do it right. And so I ask that you not apply this law retroactively. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Other comments? Anyone else would like to speak on the proposed solar law amendments?
Motion to close.
We have a motion to close.
So moved.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We appreciate everyone's comments, and we will take them under consideration. We'll move forward with our agenda. Okay, we are going to start our work session portion of the evening. And we're going to invite our friends from Cuddy and Fetter and on behalf of Volta Electric. And I don't know if Steve Harris is on the...
Let's
I
he's
see him
on,
there.
yeah.
There's Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Long time no see. Steve, how you doing?
Okay. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Supervisor Slater. Good evening, members of the town board. Kristen Motel, attorney at the law firm Cuddy and Fader. On behalf of Volta Charging LLC, it's good to see you all again and some new members also. With me tonight is Samuel Lee from Volta Charging and Mr. Steve Harris from Washington Prime, representing mall ownership. I apologize, I was on my cell phone earlier, feverishly texting with Steve to make sure he was here to join us. So tonight we are here before you for a bit of an informal discussion. We did file a petition for a zoning code amendment, so that's a text amendment, to permit electric vehicle charging stations. Volta deploys electric vehicle charging infrastructure in the Northeast, and we did not submit the actual text of the amendments we're proposing right now. We thought it would be more helpful to have a discussion with you all first and kind of present the proposal before we dug in and did some of the dirty work. So with that, I'll just give you a brief overview of what we're looking to do and then turn it over to Sam, who can tell you a little bit more about Volta and also answer your questions, because I know everyone has a lot of EV questions given all the latest news. So like I mentioned, Volta is seeking those amendments to the zoning code, and that's to permit electric vehicle charging stations. Volta stations have electronic display screens. And why they have those is because they offset the cost of charging. Volta provides free or subsidized charging for electric vehicles. They're pretty unique in that aspect. Their charging is also universal, meaning it can charge more than just Teslas. Like I know at the Staples Plaza, you all have those Tesla charging stations, but Volta's a little bit more flexible in that they can charge, the Chevy Volts and numerous kinds of vehicles. And right now, the way the zoning regulations are written, they don't really contemplate this kind of infrastructure. Actually, they don't contemplate EV infrastructure at all, which is pretty typical, right? Because this is kind of cutting edge. But especially the fact that we have these display components. And those displays are solely to provide advertising, and I'll let Sam tell you a little bit more about that, but it's pretty standard run-of-the-mill advertising. There's nothing edgy or like pushing boundaries with that. And that advertising, again, defrays the cost of providing the charging to customers. And the displays don't produce any sound. So we often compare them to like gas station TV. While the displays are bigger than that, they are silent. So there's no loud noise kind of like booming at you. And the advertising on the displays is made to target the kiosk user and then also pedestrian foot traffic. So in your packages that we submitted, we provided 2 different site plans for where Volta's looking to put these right now in Yorktown. Hopefully maybe in the future they could put them in additional locations. But right now they're looking at putting them at the mall and the Staples Plaza. And those locations are closest to the entrances, closest to the entrance to the mall, the entrance to the stores in the plaza, and that's to target that foot traffic and also to make it really convenient and make people want to charge, right? Because like if you have your EV charging across the parking lot far away from stores, that's not really providing much of an incentive. It's also intended to make sure that the displays aren't distracting to drivers on the right-of-way and they're not targeting anyone off-site. We don't want off-site visibility. We want it to just be solely on the premises with the charging. And that's what helps keep these kiosks very like accessory. They're accessory uses. They're codependent. They're not really signs per se. And so with that, we would be looking for some amendments to the sign provisions to kind of contemplate the fact that they are these hybrid uses and also to narrowly tailor the amendments so that they're not easily replicated by other types of infrastructure. So the amendments that we would be proposing would include the definition of an EV charging kiosk and exceptions of the charging kiosks from prohibitions on illumination and outdoor advertising, as well as adding some limiting factors. And just to give you an idea of some of the limiting factors that we've been able to enact in other jurisdictions, they typically address screen size, they address the size of the overall kiosk. Auto dimming is usually required, and there's a content refresh rate limit. So I think the standard limit is about every 8 seconds that image will change on the screen. And also a location. You know, we would seek to permit these in all commercial zones so that they could kind of be accessory to your retail stores and help consumers. But we're certainly all ears for John and his team in the planning department to get their opinion on the amendments. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Sam.
So just a question real quick. So the advertising would be full motion, like a video, or
No,
would it be
they're
PowerPoint slides?
static images.
Yeah, because that's what it has to be. It has to be 8 seconds, and it has to be like a PowerPoint style.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what's being proposed.
And how big
here.
would the screens be?
I believe the average size is about 9 square feet. So.
It's 55 inches across.
Do you want to?
Yeah, Sam, why don't you come to the podium? So 55 inches across, you're saying?
Diagonally, like
a flat
like we
screen.
measure our flat screen.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now will these only be on when a car is charging, like the gas stations? I know when you pull up to a gas pump, sometimes they have those
the
little
GSTV
TVs,
screens. Yeah,
GSTVs.
Yep.
When you start pumping your gas, they come on and give you a little weather or whatever the case might be.
No, these are going to be on all the time.
That's correct.
That's why they were 8 seconds. That's why they're PowerPoint style,
That's
because
correct.
it's DOT regulations and stuff like that.
Exactly. So we're not only targeting the people who use the chargers, but we're targeting the foot traffic,
Right.
pedestrians around.
We're walking past it.
Exactly.
But what is the actual dimensions of them?
Of the entire kiosk?
Yeah. Was it in here? I didn't see
I
it.
believe they're about 7.5
Oh.
feet.
Missed
Yeah,
that.
they're 7.5 feet tall. I don't know.
Where's the screen?
It's got a 55-inch TV.
Here.
No. Yeah.
You have this?
No, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, display
looks
size,
almost
48
like,
by the page for
vending
stuff.
machines.
Okay.
Looks like we found it.
Pretty big.
Now these will charge Teslas as well, or is
Universal.
It's universal, or for
Yeah, there's-
other than Tesla.
Right.
There's
Exactly.
a caveat
It's
because
Tesla and other
Okay.
cars.
there is a caveat because Tesla cars, they need an adapter to plug into our standard J1772 ports. So that is something that a Tesla driver can purchase to use our stations. Yeah.
And is it quick charge? Are they quick charge stations? Because there's a difference, right?
Yeah. So we are proposing for Staples Plaza, there will be DC fast. So that's our 50 kW chargers. What we're proposing currently is actually the slower chargers. They're the L2. It's actually one of the reasons why it'd be completely free to the users.
And that would be at the mall?
Correct.
And the Staples.
So both sites would have the L2.
So Staples Plaza would have the DC fast.
The DC, okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And how much fast? So this one says it's 30 miles per hour that you get the charge for. Is that the level 2 or the DC 5?
That would be the level 2.
And what's
So
the DC 5 get you?
For the DC fast, you can expect something close to an 80% charge in around 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
And I say 80% because the first 80% is actually the quickest, and the last 20% takes a little longer. So we don't really recommend anyone just sit there and try to get a full charge at once.
In the proposed language, was there consideration for the type of advertisement that would be allowed?
No, we had not contemplated that. Volta has a brochure of all their advertising partners, or a sample of advertising partners for this year. We usually provide that, so that's something that we can give in.
Can you provide us with some examples of who your advertising partners are?
Yeah, so Stop and Shop is a big enterprise banner that we work with, so a lot of retail and grocery. We recently signed a deal with Walgreens, so we'll have a lot of other consumer packaged goods as well. And Coca-Cola, all those big nationwide companies would want to run some ads on us.
Right.
Yep. I would like to say we also do represent the site host property owner with media sharing. So we do offer screen time for our partners so that they can benefit for their local stores.
Of course.
And anyone can actually buy time on our stations. So if there's a local business in the mall and they see that these kiosks are great, the advertising looks like it's working, they can actually come directly to us and book however many slides they want.
What about political stuff?
No, nothing political, nothing to do with cannabis, nothing to do with guns. All of that is not on our ads.
Cigarettes, alcohol.
None of that.
No cigarettes, no alcohol.
No.
Vaping.
So I wouldn't say it's a hard no, but we generally will not put that, especially if the town asks us to remove it or not include it. That's something that we can do easily.
Okay.
So let's just pick a site just out of curiosity, because you're talking about a kiosk. It's 7 feet tall with a 55-inch TV attached to it. Pretty much
At the mall.
That's what we're looking at, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So how many? I didn't get a chance to look, and I apologize. So how many kiosks would there be at the mall? Let's say.
Right. So the mall, we're proposing 4 stations.
Yeah, I think it says 4.
And
on the
at
mall.
Staples Plaza.
That's 2.
Two.
Yeah. So for the mall, it
So
would be
it's not
2 in the front
overwhelming.
and 2 in the back lot.
And does each station have the TV, or is it?
That's correct. Yeah. Every
The whole,
station.
the entire kiosk is mainly the TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So without the
24 by
TV, it's
48
not
or
much
whatever I
on
saw
there.
here.
Yeah,
So
right
it's-
there. It's beautiful.
27 by 48, so it's 27 inches wide, 48 inches long,
Yeah.
sideways. So you get
It reminds me of like the vending machines in Europe when you just swipe and you're like,
Yeah.
are they interactive? Like, can I play Wordle while I'm on waiting for my card to check?
Fortunately, it's not interactive yet. There's no
But maybe
touch
we can
screen.
get
Yet,
Sam.
yet is the key word. Yet
Yeah.
is the key word.
And we're working on, some augmented reality things, so some cool
Matt and I
things.
could play some cool games on there.
Yeah.
Wordle could
Word
be fun.
searches.
I
Yeah.
like Wordle.
Yeah, I like
they
it.
charge at 30 miles per hour. So for each hour that charge is in the car, whatever the speed of the car happens to be, they're only going to get 30 miles out of that 1 hour.
For the lower charge.
For the lower, correct.
For the lower. For the upper, it's what? Did I see that?
2.5 hours for 80%.
80%.
2.5 hours for 80%.
So just to put it into perspective, we're trying to, target, commerce-centric areas where
Yeah.
people are already going to. And so they're going there and they're able to top off their cars. No one's really going there for a full 0 to 100 charge. If you had to pick between 2 grocery stores and one provider had an EV charging station, you're going to want to go there, and that's what we're hoping to achieve.
I see some electric vehicle owners in the audience nodding, so
I
it
did
seems
see,
to make sense for them.
I did see an electric car.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's quite devious in a good way that the slower chargers are at the mall, because if I need a charge, it's like, I got to kill
gotta go
2.5, 3
yeah.
hours. I'm going to spend more money at the
That's
JV Mall.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great idea for us to
Yeah,
consider.
I think it's fantastic.
The ones at the mall actually
we
don't
need-
affect anybody per se. Like the traffic out on Route 6 or.
How would that work with? And John, you might know this question better, but with DOT, is there any prohibition from routes? Would you be able to see it from Route 6?
No, you wouldn't.
You won't be able to see it from Route 6.
What
Okay.
about at the BJ's Plaza?
From 202.
From 202. Are they going to be facing 202? Or
I think they're further up, right? Aren't?
But yeah, the idea is to have it right at the storefront, so it's only visible to pedestrians that are.
I think that the way DOT works is with these types of signs is as long as the sign is on private property, it doesn't matter, even if you could see it from the road. So I mean, in this case, they're not going to see it. It's actually different than what I imagined. The TV is horizontal now. It's
Right.
vertical and not
yeah,
horizontal.
not wide.
So,
They're actually
right.
attractive.
So it's not. It's
Oh, I
it's
think they look
actually a
great.
slim design.
Yeah, it's very
No, I mean,
sexy. divine.
I imagine like something like this with a TV, but it's not. It's actually this would be the footprint, something like that.
I like how you turned voltage into Volta.
And I got to tell you,
Made it
yeah,
Italian.
And we need, and we need the infrastructure. To be quite honest, I got to
We
tell
need
you,
more chargers.
EV people are very possessive with their car chargers. So, and there's just not enough of them. I mean, to really make a significant impact on moving into the electric car for a more significant amount of people, you really need a lot of this infrastructure.
Like I said, the only thing I think it's a great design. I think it's a great thing to have in town. I just want to be a little bit more clear on the imagery, and so even if there's like things that you don't allow, I think it would be good for us maybe
To vet them?
to list them in the actual
Yeah.
code.
Sure. So would it be okay to say like not limited to, just because we don't know who we would partner with in the future, but it'd be like brands?
Yeah, I just don't want anything inappropriate to be flashing on the screen. And it's one thing to say today that there won't be, but if you partner with someone, in 3 or 4 years, I just want to make sure that because especially in both plazas, you've got kids who are walking past there. I don't want to see them have them see something inappropriate.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be.
Definitely.
So
also,
I think it would be helpful for us to stip that in the code.
Yeah, and also the future would be to also put them here by Town Hall in this commuter lot, in my opinion. And once it's all
The
pretty,
John C. Hart Memorial Library,
minus
number one.
the highway department, we'll leave that alone.
Number one spot in town.
Yeah,
But
just
I'm
let us know and we can
saying
send a proposal.
Yeah.
No problem. Go
Yeah, no,
grab
and I want
Sarah
them to
Wilson
be-
on your way out, and you can talk to her and our Climate Smart Communities Task Force and Kira Brunner in the back have been working very hard on
don't
bringing
want them
some
to be
EV car
distracted.
chargers to municipal property. But I think for the JV Mall and for the Staples Plaza or BJ's Plaza, I think it's a great addition.
No, and it's a great start.
I think really the only point we got to flush out, and you astutely put it, is we got to figure out what the advertising component's going to look like. As far as the infrastructure, it has to happen, and one way or another in this town. And we should support that.
It's
100%. It's
past time to have more EV car chargers accessible in town. There's no doubt about it. So I think that if, maybe we can have you share those amendments with our planning department, and we can start that legislative process.
Sam, don't look worried. As long look at the partner and say, just say, would my mother allow this to be on there? And then we're good. Like that's it. It's just a gut check.
It's only my second time at one of these.
No, you're good. You're good.
My second time too.
You're good.
We're doing great.
I just want to check with my good friend Steve Harris over here. Steve, anything from your standpoint? I don't know if you can hear me. Steve, anything you want to add to the presentation?
Income potential for us, and it reflects the current orientation of most car manufacturers who are desperately trying to catch up to Tesla. I think Volta is a great partner with Washington Prime Group. We are busily installing these stalls throughout our portfolio nationwide. I would say that Jefferson Valley Mall is probably one of the most forward projects on this, and we have other ones that are just starting out. We couldn't say enough about it. I think what they've done with their planning is great. I think their ads are modest, meaning that they're not going to interfere with people driving. They certainly can't be seen from Route 6, so I don't see any DOT issues. We're very supportive, and that's the primary reason I'm here is I want to communicate that to everyone here.
We appreciate that, and I think we share. With your sentiments there. So I think next steps would be working with the planning department to start wordsmithing the proper code. So John, you got another project coming your way, buddy.
Do we have anybody from Staples Plaza?
No,
nobody here. Okay.
They're for what they're doing. They're going to propose. They're proposing for both. But we do have the principal from the Jefferson Valley Mall.
Okay,
great.
I know Steve.
So what we'll do next steps is we'll work with John, and once we have some draft language, we'll provide that to you along with samples of advertising partners and maybe some like photo simulations and pictures. So you can get a better
Where are you guys right now? Anywhere in Westchester County?
In Westchester County, I don't believe right now, but in Fairfield County in Connecticut, we actually are in Fairfield.
Where's your nearest location? I would love to drive by.
Richfield, Connecticut, Stop and Shop has them. That's
Okay.
Stop and Shop. I live in North Salem, but that's
okay. So it's in the Stop and Shop mall
of Richfield.
Plaza in Richfield.
Yeah. And then Fairfield, Connecticut.
No, that's close enough.
Yep, and we're working on some text amendments in Orangetown right now too.
I like to touch it, Sam. I like to make sure it's real. How
does it work anyway? So what would be the charge on the quick charge, right? How would that work? How would somebody get charged? I mean, I know they put a credit card in and that kind of stuff, or they have an account.
So you're talking about how would the customer pay for the charging?
No, what would you charge?
Is there going to be a charge associated with charging?
Right. So for the DC Fast, inevitably there will be a charge just because the higher usage rate of the electricity utilities we're going to have to charge. It will be subsidized. We're looking at something close to like 22 cents per kilowatt hour. But that's it. Honestly, just like gas stations, the prices are different everywhere.
Right.
You're not going to expect.
Is that good, Sarah? 22 cents? What do you think?
For a fast charge, I think that's pretty good.
She's smiling under that mask.
Smiling.
Yeah.
Big smile there.
Oh, we got it. We got a thumbs up in the back.
We got a
too.
thumbs
All
up from Dan in the back. All right.
So when you talk
like
about
to-
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go
I'd
ahead.
also like to mention that our DC fast charging, we actually provide like a free 20 to 30 minute charge for our users.
No, but that's only because you know it needs a little bit of a kick. Come on, Sam.
And
I
then-
know the G.
And then everything else we would charge for.
Awesome. Councilman?
It needs to warm up.
So the fast charge would be how much per kilowatt hour?
Looking at something close to 22 kilowatts, 22 cents per kilowatt hour, but I can't say for certain.
Right. I'm just using it as a reference point. So, so for each hour they're there, it's 22 cents. Is that what a kilowatt hour is actually measured as?
No. So it wouldn't, kilowatt hour isn't, you charge for 2 hours and you got 2 kilowatt hours. It depends on the power output of the dispenser of the charger.
What is an approximate fast charge for 1 hour at
Cost.
how many kilowatt hours?
Going by
Approximate.
22 cents.
That I honestly cannot give you an answer at this time.
Depends on battery capacity and how
Right.
fast the charger is accepting. The car is accepting.
Right. Even the
charge.
cars will have different voltage rates that they accept the chargers at. So, even if we have something like a 190 kW charger, if you're coming in with something that's a little older, you're not going to be able to get that full charge. Yeah.
Just give me another reason to go get my Ford Lightning. They're doing.
After you finish watching Yellowstone.
Of course.
Okay.
I have my priorities. Come on. All right. Awesome. Thanks so much for the presentation.
I'm sorry, where in Fairfield was it?
No, I'm going to take you with me. We're going to go to Stop and
I'm
Shop.
not going to Stop and Shop.
In the town of Fairfield, Connecticut.
But where is there a location? Is it in the middle of
It's
town?
at the,
I don't
it's
know,
not the cinema.
but we can get the address.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll provide you with the address.
One of my employees lives in Fairfield,
Oh, you're
so I was just
sending
going to
some.
have him take some pictures for me.
It's called the Black Rock Plaza, but I'm
Black Rock.
trying to think of
Okay,
what
send
it to us, yeah.
We'll send
That'd
it
be
to
great.
you.
Please.
Steven now? No?
No.
Okay.
Nice try, though.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this
We-
opportunity.
yeah, absolutely. We're excited to be working with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to welcome Dan Welsh from Sustainable Westchester to come talk to us about Westchester Power.
Dan had his thumbs up with the 22
He was applauding with that.
It's good for fast cars.
Yeah, but you do notice he backed off that 22 cents pretty quick, though. Well, approximately.
When you
the best guy.
fast charge, you don't care too much, actually. When it
Okay.
comes down to
If
it.
the
But that's
sustainable guy doesn't know what's good pricing for kilowatts, we have a bigger issue.
There's a problem.
So Dan's here, as we know. I see some residents of Jefferson Village in the audience. We all know about the backbreaking utility bills that have been coming through, whether you're Con Ed or NYSEG. It's not just here. We've seen reports of people up in Dutchess County with the same problem, Putnam County, Central Hudson customers, Con Ed customers in the city. So it is definitely happening across the region, across the state. This was one of the ways that we here on the local level could try to provide some relief. And it's a very, very, I think, interesting and exciting program that I'm very hopeful that we can take next steps with. And so we asked our partners from Sustainable Westchester. We've done so much work with Sustainable Westchester already with the community solar program. They've been great partners, helping us become really regional leaders in renewable energy initiatives. And so this is another one of their cornerstone programs, and we're thrilled to have Dan Welsh with us. So Dan, if you want to take us through the Westchester Power program,
Sure.
we
You go ahead
appreciate
to
it.
The next slide. For those who don't know, Sustainable Westchester is a municipal membership nonprofit. You're members, and so is everybody else in the county. And our job is to develop, design, and administer programs that help municipalities move the needle on their environmental sustainability goals. So it's as simple as that. We've been around for about 13 years, and I always like to remind people when I come here that we actually were kind of born in your basement. The first meetings of the Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium. So it's kind of
awesome.
Fun. Yeah. Next slide. And just, of course, programming runs the gamut of what you'd expect out of a sustainability organization. Very energy-centric, but of course there's sort of peripherally related things, energy efficiency and grid efficiency, and even a lot of work in the landscaping area is very popular these days. So just to get a sense of what we're about. Next slide. In terms of the Community Choice Aggregation Program, and that's the last time I'll use that term because it's clumsy and nobody wants to know about it. It's a community energy program. It started out back in 2016 with 20 municipalities in the county in that first contract. And today, as of the launch of Yonkers this year, we're up to 29. And that brings the total participating households and accounts up to 145,000 roughly, which is, we're coming up on half of the county in terms of the number of accounts now. So, and there's animation in here, but the program is intuitive in the sense that it's a big bulk purchasing program, right? It is kind of the cornerstone of the energy work that we do, and the goals, as you may imagine, is to drive as much renewable energy uptake as we can, but to do so in the most economically effective way possible. And it's also important, just as the basics, to know it's only for your supply. The delivery and all the nuts and bolts of getting the electrons to your house, that stays with your utility, whether it be NYSEG or Con Ed. Right?
So Con Ed customers are still going to be Con Ed customers. NYSEG customers are still going to be NYSEG customers.
Yes. So this is just where you secure your energy from.
Right.
Okay. And this is kind of a peek at the same thing. It's just to say you've got delivery is going to stay with your utility, and the power is a matter of, I like to talk about power procurement as kind of like deciding who's going to dump electricity into the grid on your behalf, because you don't know where a given electron is going to go. But we have to keep the whole grid charged, and everybody has to purchase electricity and make that happen. So the program essentially is an alternative way of going out and securing that electricity. Okay? And then the other critical piece that really distinguishes the community choice program is that it changes the default for participating municipalities. So when there's no program like this, your default supply is with the utility. And the utility is basically a pass-through of whatever comes off of the New York ISO market. And that's their main job, is the nuts and bolts, but they supply as a last resort, essentially.
And that's what we saw with the last round of bills, was the cost of producing the energy shot through the roof.
Right, because that's the format. It's very simple for them. They do some hedging to try and smooth things out. It would have been even worse if they weren't doing that.
Right.
But essentially, it's a pass-through.
Yep.
So there's always a default. What happens when a community participates? The default, which is just your starting point, changes to the community selected supply. Now you still have all the options that you ever had. You can leave and go back to the utility, or you can go out and secure your own supply contract.
So no one is mandated to use the default supply. So if you want out, you tap out. If you want to go on your own and deal with Con Ed directly, you go deal with Con Ed directly. If you want to go, I hit something by accident. And if you want to go with it, if you want to go explore your own ESCO options, you're able to do that as well. So you have options available.
Yeah, and it kind of provides sort of a hybrid point between the sort of you're on your own with the ESCO world that we've had for the past 25 years, which can be, for some people they know what they're doing and they've done well in that. And we also know that some people have had real problems trying to work with private ESCOs, or you have these slamming and all these different practices. So in this case, we're also going out to the ESCO world, but we run a reverse auction for the supply, and then it's a managed contract. So you're not going to get stuck in something. And again, it's consumer friendly, so it serves basically as a cap for you rather than you're stuck in it. You can leave at any time you want.
And once you leave, can you come back in?
Yes, in and out. That's right.
You can go in and out like a ping pong ball.
Yeah.
So what's in and out mean? It like today, tomorrow, or
no? Because of the mechanics of changing, right? Because when you change, you're always in the middle of a billing cycle, and the change is happening at the end of a cycle. So if you're 15 days before the end, you'll come in the next billing cycle. If you're like 1 or 2 days before the end, you might miss, because there is a process of enrollment.
You have to just wait for the next cycle.
And you'd be in the next cycle. So it's not instantaneous.
So it's not necessarily like a 30-day. Like it's if you could technically opt in or out, right? On the 21st day of your billing cycle, as long as there's enough time for that to catch up. You might be with Sustainable Westchester as your source, right? Within 7 days, potentially. Depends on how you play.
Depends on when you take that action versus when your meter read date is.
Right. I get it.
So we as the town would opt into a program, and then we would give our residents the opportunity to either stay in or opt out. And if they prefer to do their own exploration, they can do their own exploration. And then at that time or any time, the program of which the town has taken on as a giving the town a choice, town residents a choice, they can opt in again.
Yes, if they decide, like, sometimes you have people who are like, well, I just don't understand this yet, and so
But let me
I'm
just
going to
do
opt
more- yeah,
out.
let me give it another
and then
month
do
or-
it.
yeah, sure.
In Yonkers, we have people who opted out, and 3 days later
Opted back in. Yeah.
Okay. You know.
Well, sometimes
So-
we have conversations with people.
There's been a lot. It's very confusing. It says it up there with the ESCO offerings. They're very confusing. People are very apprehensive.
Right.
I mean, there was a period of time when we were getting calls that everybody was an electric company, and then you'd get knocked with, like, the price per kilowatt was very low, but it was a $350 delivery charge, and your bill went up instead of down, even though you were paying less
User
for electric.
rates, all kinds of practices, or then you get like brokers who have teams of people who are going out and knocking on seniors' doors and
Right.
saying, if you don't sign up now, your power is going to get cut
Right,
off, and
right.
things like that. So, one of the good things that happens when we
Really terrible.
start the outreach process in a municipality, it's like the first time people have even thought about their electricity oftentimes. And we have we have
Sergio doesn't. He just blindly pays.
I just paid a bill.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I
I paid a
understand
bill.
that.
It's just I'm not going to be able to change it. That's why when we were speaking about this and all the complaints we got, not complaints but concerns that we got from almost everybody in town,
Unbelievable.
even businesses.
And this does apply to businesses, by the way, right?
It applies to small businesses. So those are non-demand customers.
Yeah, is there a square footage?
I didn't mean to.
No, it's about their demand. So usually, think of small shops, mom and pop shops. If they go beyond a certain amount, the utility is going to install a demand meter, and then their whole way of billing changes to what's your peak usage, not what's your total usage.
For businesses.
That's what I
So
was
these
asking.
are small
Is he
businesses.
saying, like, it depends on what they actually do in the business, or like, in other words, because you understand.
No, it's like how much electricity do you use.
Exactly. How much you draw out.
Yeah, and if you go beyond, I forget, it's like 10, I forget what the number is. It's like 10
Is it high?
kilowatts
Is it
demand.
is
Then
it
they're going to install a demand meter so that they will know what your peak is during a given day. Your normal meters, they don't care about that. They just look at your total use during the month,
Right.
So we're talking about small businesses. Think of it scale-wise like a residential bill. It's just not a big user.
So what? Like in terms of employees, less
2
than
or
10,
3,
or
yeah.
it really doesn't matter because it depends on your usage.
I mean, if
Peak
you
demand.
had, you could have 100 employees if you kept them in the dark and didn't.
Come to wake
That's what, they go to work, that's what they go to work with Councilman Diana. They're in a hole.
It's about usage.
Keep them in the dark.
That's what I used to say. That's what I used to say to my father. I'd say, "Papa, it's cold in Italian." He would tell me to get a coat.
That's right.
No, I'm sure you don't have any business.
Do you have if you don't re-sign up at a certain date, is there a penalty or is there a? Because I know some of these ESCOs had that.
There is really no sign-up process. So, and one thing that's kind of can be confusing to people when we talk about a contract, it's not a contract for an individual. It's just a contract that the winning supplier has to commit to supply at those rates to the town, to the citizens in the town, and the residents can go in and out as they please. They don't have to sign anything. So
To
there's
Councilman
no
Diana's point, so then there's no penalty as well.
no penalty. Right.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very
Cool.
consumer friendly. Right. But
So they just literally click a button that says "Enroll me."
no, they don't have to do that. The
Subscribe?
default, what happens is when a municipality comes in, first of all, we have to do a bunch of outreach and run some information sessions, try to get some stuff out in social media,
Very important.
ask the town to push out some stuff on their email list, and the minimum that the Department of Public Service requires is, they say, 2 months, but we do it as long as the municipality wants to in terms of feeling comfortable, okay, we're ready to go. In fact, this is in a later slide, but there's no, it's not a choice by the person in terms of they have to do something. If they don't do something, they're going to roll in. If they want not to be in it, then they raise their hand. they either go to our website.
That's what I'm saying. Your website might have like an
We got a
unsubscribe kind of
form,
thing.
yeah, or they call us, and then when the mailing's done, there's also a postage-free card they can send
So,
back.
Paul, for me, it was important to try to do something for our residents, especially our seniors, that had so many concerns because many of them on a fixed income.
Mhm.
And so, I think this is a good option, already. And I look forward to hearing more about it. So I'm going to.
You want to walk us through this slide?
Defer to you.
So these are the current contracts we have. Actually, we have the Yonkers contract, but these are the ones that would be relevant here. And so you do have the two utility territories, and Bedford is the only other town in Westchester that has that issue. So you'd be looking at both of these, and happen to be two separate contracts, and of course, as you well know, rates differ in the two areas. So the NYSEG contract is actually, the new contract is just starting in March, and then the Con Ed contract is in place now and goes until the
June 30th.
End of June. So right now, obviously the Con Ed rates look very favorable because they were contracted back in January of last year.
Mhm.
So the folks in that contract are, through all this excitement, they're riding right through that very nicely.
Right.
You can see the NYSEG contract has pushed up because that was contracted more lately. But even so, very importantly, as you saw before, 27 out of the 29 municipalities defaulted to the green supply, but we have the standard supply even in those municipalities that you can change to just, again, by raising your hand and doing that. And we always encourage, if people have a reason to do that, whatever that reason is, whether it's just that's what they want to do, or they need to make a budget at the end of the month, whatever it is, they call us and they say, I want to do that, they go right in, So
if, just to make sure we understand, so if the town goes with 100% renewable, which is the higher rate, an individual can call and say, no, I want the lower rate, and go to
Absolutely.
standard.
Absolutely.
And they get the lower rate.
That's right.
So there's no mandate from the town's perspective saying we're locking you in to this rate, this source. You can play around with, and can you go back and forth between renewable and standard? So you can bounce back and forth between renewable and standard. You can bounce in and out of the program altogether. So there's a ton of flexibility associated with it.
Yeah, that's right.
And just so it's clear, the 100% renewable is higher compared to the standard, but at this point, considerably less than compared to
Than
Con
being
Ed
on
rates.
your own, yeah.
Than being on their own.
That looks
Yeah,
good.
so just
Now-
so it's...
Now, it's always important these are fixed rates, and you're locked in.
Right.
So you never know where the utility is going to be. We
Right.
cannot tell you, we're going to beat the utility, or, there's a value to the reliability and, knowing that it's not going to
Spike.
jacked up, spike.
That's exactly what we're facing.
You may be ahead or behind the utility at any time. This is not like a big money maker. This is not cryptocurrency or whatever.
Right.
It's more like an insurance program in a sense,
Right.
So, Dana, just a question. So, the ease of changing, opting in, opting out, moving between them, is it phone call only? Is it computer?
Phone call, website. You can
Right.
imagine it's a form. You just put in your Con Ed number.
How quick does that turnover take? So, say tomorrow I want to tonight I move over towards from renewable to standard.
Yeah.
How long does that take to process?
Again, the actual processing, it goes into the supplier from our site. The supplier has this electronic digital exchange with Con Ed that goes in over the next day or so, and then Con Ed has to process the thing. So the sort of rule of thumb that I've always got from our suppliers, when I ask them, how far ahead of your meter read date would you have to be, could you be, and still make that next period? And 5 days is, roughly.
So you do go meter to meter period, and if you give you're estimating about a week. If I say, hey, by the next meter period.
Yeah, if you are submitting this change a week before your meter read date, the chances are you're going to be good, so that that next period
Moves
you're
down.
in that supply.
Right.
And that's whether you're opting out or in, too, right? It'd be the same.
Yeah, but, so just to be clear, it could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. I don't want people to understand that, they
Right.
said a week, and
And
It
and
depends
if
on your
you're-
billing cycle is really what it depends on.
It's about the billing cycle.
That's
So if
all
you're
it's
just
about.
a couple days before that next billing cycle,
And it's too tight.
then you might skip to the next one because it didn't get
May not
processed
catch up on
in
time.
term. That's all.
Yeah.
You know?
So how is one to know?
The billing cycle?
No. Well, they should know their billing cycle. That's on their bill. But
On the bill, yeah.
how is one to know whether the Con Ed rate or the NYSEG rate is actually more or less than what
Very good.
Too much you're paying.
Westchester?
At any given point in time, it's not easy because the Con Ed doesn't publish their rates ahead of time. You can look now. I think they just changed their bill format. When you're with Con Ed, they used to put a little dotted line box below the supply and said, if you were going out to look at an ESCO, your equivalent charge, per kilowatt hour charge that you would compare with is X, because it's kind of complicated. You have to add little pieces up to get to that.
Right.
The most recent bill and the redesign that I saw, I don't know that I saw that anymore.
Now
But
it's big
even
numbers
so,
to say like $1,200. That you're paying for your
Well,
electric.
It would give you the per kilowatt hour.
There was an option for firstborn child.
Yeah.
The last round of bills.
Just so to be clear, this doesn't take into account. This is just for your kilowatt hours. Doesn't take into account delivery and so on and so on and so on. There are little nuances and all the taxes.
That's all on the utility side,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
On
It's
a
just
typical
kilowatt hour.
Con Ed bill, that's always been about like 2/3 of your bill.
Right.
Although recently when the supply went up, it became
Probably 50-50
less,
now.
50-50 maybe.
Right.
But yeah, only for the supply.
So you can. This is a great graph that we were showing as well.
Yeah, so this gives you a sense of kind of how the dynamic of the fixed rate versus the utility rates.
And
right?
in light of the conversations we've had earlier, renewable is obviously the cleanest version of the energy, correct?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's just
Yeah.
make that clear because we don't want to, with all the tree stuff that we discussed, we want to make sure that we constantly are aware that if we are going to make changes to evolve Yorktown, that we are going to stay in the cleanest format as possible.
Yeah.
But it's the more expensive.
Okay, but
It
it's
is slightly,
but sometimes you got to
knock down to the
sacrifice.
standard.
You got to give a little. You got to take a little. You got to do it, right? It makes sense.
We're trying to make progress and move the needle on this. As you'll see, it's also part and parcel of kind of like all the different things you want to do. We need to electrify our building heat, right? If you're going to get away from fossil fuels, you have to stop burning fossil fuels. So when you electrify your buildings, you're going to want to be using green energy, or else the impact is less, right? So it's all kind of connected in that way.
The mission is all somewhat together, yeah.
Yep.
So Dan, in theory, someone, I don't know if you can see my mouse over here, but someone over here can opt out, ride this wave where the rate is
Well,
lower,
yes.
and then opt back in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you wouldn't.
Who could
You wouldn't be
predict
able.
that?
You wouldn't know that. You wouldn't be able to predict that.
But
obviously.
after the first couple
Unless
of
you're
bills
spend-
or something, you could say, you know what, this doesn't look like it's going away.
Yep.
Whatever.
Okay.
Right. So there's a little
Be a
latency
bill.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're never stuck.
So this is Con Ed, residential.
Right. And then
This one is NYSEG.
right. So as you can tell, we're ahead sometimes, we're behind. It's not, as I say, some big money making thing, but it does level out your charges, and you can step back and.
You're not going to get the backbreaking utility bill that everyone just got.
That's right. That's right.
It's a good option.
And this is kind of making the point we were just talking about how they all fit together. When you think about all the great work that's been done in getting people to take advantage of the community solar opportunity, if you take that fixed rate and then on top of that you combine it with community solar with the discount, now you've got a pretty powerful, guaranteed lower rate. We still don't know it's going to be guaranteed to beat I always have to preface everything with that, it's a fixed rate. I don't know we're going to beat the utility, but it's a pretty powerful combination. And again, success breeds success. When the next program comes along that we can deliver to the residents, they're used to engaging on it, and that's part of the power of it.
That's
too.
something I wanted to ask you. So when I installed heat pumps for pools, I would be able to go to whatever resource I used for them. I used to use a lot of Pentair, and they would give me this drive, and I would just plug it into my heat pump, and it would reset the brain of the heat pump. Now, depending on what the coils did, if it had reversibilities or not, but is this something, as your technology evolves and we are able to use different resources for energy, will this be something that Sustainable Westchester
Things
is looking
are,
into?
we're going to be bringing a lot of different programming going forward. For example, the grid rewards, I'm sure you've
we've done that.
When proposed, you know, and that's really the first foray that we've made into the real granular usage that people have, you know, and trying to have a way for them to get feedback on their practices and how it affects them economically and how it works, you know, versus the environment as well.
Great program.
So those kind of things there's going to be more and more of those for sure. And we've got lots of work going on trying to take this program yet again to the next
level.
stage. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
I appreciate that.
And this was just a snapshot. We wanted to know, you know, sort of what we were looking at in terms of the number of accounts in Yorktown. And, you know, the total comes out to, you can see maybe 13,000 accounts roughly, a little bit more in the Con Ed side than in the NYSEG side. And then you have this small commercial category. This all comes off of the Universal Energy Registry that NYSEG, or NYSERDA puts up for us. It's not fresh today data, but it's within a year or so, so it's pretty good. And then you have the ineligible count that you see there are people that are maybe already in the ESCOs. So, you know, they wouldn't be part of this opt-out eligible population because we're not going to break their contracts or whatever, right? And then it would also include anybody who's on the heating assistance program. Those folks are not eligible at all. And then we're just showing sort of like a typical opt-out rate after going through the process, and then maybe yeah, it tends to be, you know, around 15%, and some of the more, you know, actively supportive places are as low as like 10 or even under that. And you know, Yonkers was pretty crazy, and we're closer to 20. But this typical, around 15% or so drop out. So that would leave us with about 12,000 participants. And so now just to give an overview for like how would you do this thing? I mentioned already about the outreach, but to start the clock on the outreach, you want to pass the enabling law. And the enabling law, you may have encountered those for other programs. It's just what it says it is. You put it on the books, it enables you to do it, but doesn't oblige you to do it. So it's something we always tell people, if you're thinking about this at all, you know, put it out for, you know, to public hearing, get it on your books. It's there. That way it won't be in the way later on if you decide you want to do it. And basically it just sets out that the town is you know, asserting its local authority to establish one of these kind of programs. It's required by the PSC in order to go forward with this. So we can provide you with the model for that.
You have model legislation for that?
Yes.
Great.
Yes. And then, you know, answer any questions about that. And then, as I said, for the Public Service Commission, that 2 months obligatory outreach, the clock starts then, and we would work with you to get ideas from you on what are the best venues and modes to do that. But, you know, typically we're out running information sessions, Zoom sessions. You know, when we were out in the public, which now we can start to do again, you know, we'd have hours at a coffee shop on a Friday afternoon or something, you know. And of course, social media.
If I may, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, no. That's
if I may, do you have a small Zoom session per se that we could put on our website that somebody could click onto for 3 or 4 minutes to maybe start getting them acclimated if they do decide they want to go to something like this? Is that something you guys provide?
Yeah, no, we would provide materials like that, including videos. In fact, we were just working on one that might be ready for us as we go forward with that. So yeah, we would have materials for you to put on your website.
This way, when folks come for a public hearing or something, they're versed in what they want to ask and how they want to proceed, if they want to proceed.
Yep.
So just so we're clear, right? So we would pass an enabling law, but that doesn't mean we're opting in. Right?
Yeah,
right?
you are
and then we'll be
not
set.
committed at that point.
Just for the public. I mean, I understand it.
Yeah.
It's just, so just it wouldn't really mean that we're going to do it. It means that we can do it whenever we want, when and if we want to.
That's right. Right.
Okay.
So you look at these steps along the way, there's no real commitment until you contract for it, right? So after we finish the outreach, we package all this stuff up. We have to get a copy of your local law, the records of the outreach, and a copy of our standard opt-out notification letter that goes to everybody. Send that into the Department of Public Service. Usually within 2 weeks, they turn it around and say, yes, you're authorized to participate in the Westchester Power Community Choice Aggregation Program. I use that word again. And at that point,
Fumble.
now we're in the phase where we're like, okay, you're participating or not, and maybe this is time to go to the next slide. Oh well, this is kind of fleshing that out. But this is like the pretty much the as tight a timeline as we're going to be able to do. Leaving 4 weeks. I don't know. It depends on your schedules, how long it takes to put the law out. That outreach, so we said 2 months. I'm calling it nine weeks, but maybe it's a couple of weeks more, whatever you're comfortable with. Say 2 weeks to turn around the approval. Once that comes back, we get the contract process, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But supposing we're right in position to go forward with contract, then we have a post-contract outreach that we have to do. That was actually added after a couple of years of the program being in place. It's just another information session where we say, oh yeah, we've got this contract now. These are such and such rates. Basically belt and suspenders versus the notification letter. And then you go into the opt-out period, 30 days. And then of course there's, you have to buffer for mailing, and there's a buffer on the other side between the end of the 30 days and the nominal start date, and like, for example, NYSEG starts March 1st. We ended the opt-out period already, and you've got 2 weeks for the enrollments to happen and all this kind of stuff. So that's, if everything goes smoothly and there's no other factors there, that's about a 6-month process, roughly.
So hopefully by the summer.
Could that would be a...
That's the goal.
Okay, let's go for it. But this is kind of a key part here, because ultimately you have to end up with a contract. So the community choice aggregation is a municipal contract, basically, that you're signing with the suppliers, which awards to them the rights to supply the eligible residents and small businesses on an opt-out basis. So it ultimately results in a contract. It's a 3-party contract with us as administrator. So we have our existing contracts, and we have had situations where new municipalities have come on midstream in those contracts and just plugged in and said whatever that contract was, signed off on it, and we launched. That's conceivable if the timing is good, right? In Con Edison, we do have the one contract ending in June, so it would be late for you to be actually right there at the starting point, perhaps, given all the steps, but you could be a month after that launch or something like that. So we'd watch this as we went along the continuum of getting you in position to do it. We'd see where these other contracts stood. NYSEG, there's still plenty of time. That goes until next year in November. So you'd be in a position to decide. Let's plug into that. Now, in those cases, we do have to have, obviously, we've got another party on the other end of the contract. They have to agree to do it, essentially, because the contract as it stands, they're individual contracts with all these municipalities. They aren't obliged to just take somebody new. So it's going to depend kind of on where the market is and where everybody's comfort level is. But we are able to do that often. And then it's also possible we could go out for separate bids. You'd have your own aggregation. Might have to be 2 separate bids for
because of NYSEG
and NYSEG, and we would watch all those possibilities and see which one was the best that you were most happy about.
First steps first is let's get that model law in and start that process as quickly as we can, so that we can review it, move it ahead. Right.
Right. I think the best thing that we could do for our residents is give them the options.
100%.
Yeah, and we're offering them the exploration, and it's another option.
Right.
Like sort of saying, it's like
Absolutely.
Okay.
I expect everyone who came up though to talk about no solar and tree law
To definitely opt
to be
in.
the ones opting in for the 100%.
No, we definitely want to give us. We want to minimize that footprint as much as possible. So yeah.
Great.
Awesome. So
Thank you.
you'll send that over. I don't know if is there anything else with your. Is there anything else? Well, we're not taking questions right now. Is there anything else with the present? Is there another slide? Questions. There you go.
I think that's it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You good?
Good.
Councilman Diana? All right, great. So send that over if you can, that model legislation. We can get that moving.
Will do.
We'll get it over to the clerk and hopefully set that up pretty quickly. All right. Dan,
Thanks very
thanks
much.
for your time.
Yep.
We appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And that concludes Sustainable Westchester.
All right.
Still talking renewable, still talking environment. We're going to welcome members of the Climate Smart Communities Task Force up. I know we've got Sarah Wilson here, Paul Moskowitz, and Kira Brunner, who's turned into the administrator in some ways in the back. But they wanted to just quickly talk about and update the town board on these CEC grants, these Clean Energy Community grants. So who's drawing the short straw? Okay.
I just don't know if we're qualifying for the grant.
Kira Brunner.
We got money.
That's it.
We got money.
That's all I want.
got money.
Someone tell Pat Caparo, we got some money.
Always a good way to start off.
Yeah, right. We got money.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's some zeros too.
Okay. I want to make sure that when you tell me that it's a climate smart community, that we are a climate smart community.
We are headed there. We're actually designated
like
a
almost
clean
there.
energy committee.
We are a
community.
clean energy community. That's
Yes.
that's good news. So talk to us, Kira. Where are we at?
Okay,
Update the board.
so the Climate Smart Communities Task Force has been working, and back in December of 2021, we were awarded two $5,000 grants.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
a big thing for
Great
us.
work.
Yes. So one of those grants was because we completed the community solar campaign, which we worked with Sustainable Westchester on.
Yep.
The other one was because we got that qualified us for 4 high impact action clean energy community programs. So with that, we got $10,000.
Nice.
And now it's come into, well, what do we do with that money? So the CSC task force has decided to do energy audits or look into doing energy audits for town-owned and operated buildings.
Great.
It's probably
Great.
the best way to spend the funds. So we are in the process of getting formal quotes from contractors to gauge just how many buildings that we can fit into the 10,000 and kind of seeing what data we'll receive from that. Because we're hoping from the energy audits, the information that we'll get from that will also help us obtain points to become a
Climate
climate
smart.
smart community
Yeah.
as
And-
well. So
And that's great because I mean the town buildings are where we need to do their updates, and as we start to do the improvements to the buildings, knowing that we can have this because we have the information from the audit is incredibly helpful.
yeah,
Yeah. So
It's a great road.
and I don't, the last time we did an energy audit years ago, 2010, 2007.
I think Paul did it, right?
2009. And they weren't for all of the town buildings. They
Right.
were for,
whatever they could do.
whatever they could, do. So, we're exploring those options and seeing where, the contractors will take us and how much kind of bang we can get for our buck in a way. So, and with that, just to keep going, the information we'll get from the energy audits will enable the town to make a data-driven decision as to how we can make climate-positive actions in the town, and it will give us the best information for a savings and emissions reduction perspective. So hopefully we'll be able to make some really positive changes in the community climate-wise.
Good.
Yeah, and as you do that, you actually reground the community. I mean, earth and spirits are one. So that's really awesome. We're rerouting our community, and I think that's wonderful. So thank you. And when we do get there, I'm Italian. We'll have cake. We'll have a party, right? My mom says you celebrate everything. All the joys in life are worth being celebrated, and that's great work.
We appreciate
Thank
the
you for
great
the
work
update.
of the CSC
Yep.
task force. We thank them for their leadership. Does the board need to take any action on those CSC grants?
As of right now, no.
Okay.
When we do pick a contractor and get there, we do have to submit like a formal letter saying that the town board knows what's going on, they approve of it, and we'll go from there.
And Supervisor Slater, you will have to open the doors to the town buildings.
What do you mean? My doors are open.
I'm just saying, like, as
The
long as
doors
they
are
get to
wide
come in,
open.
we're good.
Doors are wide open. Anyone can walk right in.
Got to keep the doors closed, otherwise all the energy goes out.
No.
That's true. All right.
All right, well,
Thank you,
you
Kira.
all. Have a great evening.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kara.
All right. Last but not least, I got you there.
What would you say?
They give me a hard time. We're actually ahead of schedule. You want to take an intermission?
No.
You sure?
No, I'm
Getting close to the witching hour.
Last item, we're going to welcome Jim Glathar, who's sitting in as town attorney. Let's see if we can get this to work. We had some technical difficulties before, but we're going to give it to Jim, and Jim's going to make sure mine's shut off. There's no sound. So, Jim, floor is yours on the Underhill Farm Overlay District application. Why don't you update us as to where we are and where we're going?
This application
Put the microphone to him.
January 11th. They have asked for only the most preliminary of authorizations. It's not even an approval, it's an authorization. It's an authorization to pursue development under the town's overlay district application. Now, this application was looked at in great detail during the rezoning, which created the overlay zones. The project itself, if it's built to capacity, would call for 148 residential units distributed among 12 structures and 11,000 square feet of commercial space in one of the 12 structures. They would make use of they would create 2 new driveways. And so the planning board looked at this and recommended that authorization to pursue under the overlay district was appropriate. The town board considered that application or that memo and decided, or will be deciding tonight, that the structures, the plan will be allowed to proceed under the overlay district regulations. Now, it does not bind the town to pursuing the overlay district regulations. The town can determine that for whatever reason the overlay district doesn't work at this site. It's certainly possible. So this will, applying the overlay zone applications will reduce the lot frontage requirements, lot coverage, lot area, minimum floor area. In essence, they're concentrating the buildings towards the center of the site, except for the historic house, which is not proposed to be changed except to be adapted for reuse. The Westchester County Planning Department issued a letter stating that she wanted to see an affordable, affirmatively furthering fair housing program. The town is of the opinion, as is the developer, that the project was designed under the town's law, not the county's, and therefore that application, that suggestion was rejected. The second thing is that she made two comments that are really best addressed at the site plan stage. For instance, the intersection of Sawmill River Road and Underhill Avenue will be strenuously scrutinized by the planning board during its review of this project, and they will make sure there is sufficient capacity and that there will be minimal impositions to abutting properties. In addition, the applicant also disagrees with the comment that the site plan approval process is not the proper method for reviewing these suggestions. I'm not sure what she is talking about. It is certainly an adequate method for reviewing these plans, and if the planning board is not satisfied, they can pass on the development. They can pass on the overlay district. They can let it be designed under a typical zoning analysis. So that would be really what is happening here. The county is, I think the county is overreaching a little bit, but there are some site plan waivers that will be requested under the overlay zone.
Excuse me, Jim, just give John maybe a second to just recap, because it's hard to hear you. Can you recap what he's saying?
Well, I think what he's saying is that the point you are at is you have a request for authorization to just be processed under the overlay zone. Of course, you did get comments on when you referred it out to the county.
Yep.
And you've taken it under consideration, and you're at the point to decide whether or not this project goes into and can be processed under the overlay zone at the planning board level, as the law is written. And I think that's the simple synopsis of what Jim was just going through.
And also,
as I heard him.
And we also had the applicant did respond to the county planning memo, providing their perspective in some of the items that were pointed out by the planning department of Westchester County.
So, Jim, would you and John say that we're on the right track now that we've reached out to the county? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, great. That everyone heard that, right? Yes.
This is the first step in the process, and that's all it is, the first step in a long process. So I would not be hesitant at all to adopt this resolution and refer this to the planning board for review under the overlay district regulations, and that's what my recommendation is.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
John, can you just one more time, just because of we're having a hearing issue, high level on the county planning memo? They were talking about issues that were more granularly focused in the site plan. Is that accurate?
Yet they essentially discussed what are site planning details.
Right. Okay.
In other words, how you get to the end result and do it in a manner that you preserve the function and operation of site planning issues in and around the site, and then the manner by that which is done. But I think what Jim is saying, it's a little premature because that is not what's in front of this board.
We're not at that point. Right.
Those two items are things that the planning board will be grappling with.
And ultimately, the county planning department did endorse moving the project to the next phase, which is the site plan approval, correct?
That's
And the applicant's attorney responded to it, agreeing to it.
Right, yes. The applicant did respond to the Westchester County Planning memo.
And county planning even said that their comments were a little premature, that it would be coming back to them.
Yeah.
Once it got to the planning board, and that's when it would be addressed. They said that themselves. So.
Yeah, they'll get another.
I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Conversation from the board. I mean, you have the draft resolution here.
I feel like we've been
It's
talking
been-
about this for a while now. I
have.
feel like we've now.
And you're new to the board.
Yeah.
Woo.
Telling me.
Guys, I gotta keep my hair, right, guys?
Look. I think the project. I don't know what else could be done. I think it's been thoroughly reviewed, thoroughly looked at, and it's not even. We're at the infant stage still, right? I mean, it hasn't even gone to planning yet, where it's really going to be scrutinized and looked at and flushed out. No, I think. I think the final step was referring it to county planning. They came back with, positive comments about that the project. They were in favor of the project. I think we moved this forward.
And just to simplify that, it's like throwing the pasta in the colander. We did what we said we were going to do. We went to the county. The county came back with their comments. We sent the comments over to the applicant's attorney. The applicant's attorney acknowledged the comments, wrote back exactly a memo representing the same exact way, understood that we're reducing the number of units. I don't know what else we could possibly discuss.
It's a laudable project, and I think it's time to kick it up to planning.
Amen.
And actually, we go back to the root cause here, or the root thing our root decision is, does it meet the criteria under the law? That is our only decision.
That's correct.
And it does, so yes, please, let us
John?
give this to John to pull out the rest of his hair.
There it is.
Yeah.
Someone's gotta make a motion.
I make a motion
Second.
to pass the resolution.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Moving forward,
Thank you, Jim.
resolutions. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Yes,
Thank you, John.
Jim, and thank you,
Thank
John.
you, John. Sorry for the.
JT, thank you again.
I like attacked.
The voice of
Best
reason
of
has
luck
spoken.
to the planning board. Resolutions authorized. We'll take them together. Authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Westchester County for nutrition and support services to seniors over 60 years under Title 111-C-2.
Absolutely.
Authorize the supervisor to sign the New York State Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program vendor agreement. Promote and support records management program and designate town clerk as a records management officer. Authorize town clerk to advertise a rebid for 5 various chemicals for the water pollution treatment plant. Authorize the town clerk to advertise a bid for the replacement of air conditioning systems at the Albert A. Capellini Community and Cultural Center. Authorize the town clerk to advertise a bid for camp buses for the Parks and Recreation Department. Authorize the town clerk to refer out following applications received by BP Gas Station and 7-Eleven requesting to amend their site plans for gasoline stations. Authorize the comptroller to process a budget transfer for building and maintenance. This would be $13,370 from the fund balance to Town Hall building and maintenance, and this will go towards the replacement of the air conditioning units at Town Hall damaged by a motor vehicle accident. Insurance recovery will reimburse a portion of this expenditure. Just as a point of information, there was a motor vehicle accident where a car driver had fallen asleep at the wheel, came down Underhill Avenue, hopped the curb, and came down the hill and took out our air conditioning units outside of Town Hall here. So that $13,370 will go towards replacing those. Authorize the comptroller to refund school tax penalty for the account number 3321000 in the amount of $317.87. Authorize Alcoholics Anonymous to rent meeting space at the Albert A. Capellini Community and Cultural Center and the Sparkle Lake Building. Authorize the Senior Nutrition Services and Nutrition Department to dispose of equipment that is deemed obsolete and no longer used to be sold at auction.
Just to back up to one, Supervisor,
Yes, sir.
if we may. Authorizing the town clerk to refer out the following applications for the BP gas station. That basically comes to us, doesn't it?
It does.
All gas stations.
It does. but
Right,
we're
Maura? They all
come,
gas stations.
They all come to us, but I want to thank the town clerk because this is actually helping us fast track that.
Alrighty.
That process. Rather than have the applicant come here, only to be referred out, only to come back again, we can just refer them out as they propose it.
And then they can come back the one time.
And they come back the one time with the comments of the other referred.
I just want to make it clear that this is one of
boards,
Maura's
not a bird.
favorite
Boards.
things.
Boards. Yeah, she loves gas.
She loves gas stations.
Any other comments or questions on the resolution?
I had a question on the household water assistance program, low-income house. Do we have details on that available on the web?
It is going to be put on the web. This is actually a really important program that, frankly, we stumbled upon, and we've been working with one constituent in particular, but we think it could be helpful to many.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that we get the information out there, and this is the first step in that process. So that's why we're engaging in this for the first time.
Good. Thank
Great
you.
option.
Very good option. Other questions?
Nope.
Okay, then we have someone make a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
No, not that one.
So
Shucks, I
moved.
thought I'd get that over.
Not that one.
Motion.
We have a motion to
Right.
accept the resolutions. Anyone second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries. And with that, Councilman Diana, you take it home.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you again, John
thought I could
Tager and
slip
Jim
that by
Glathar.
him.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you all.